Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Seeds to Healing. For those of you that keep coming back, thank you. For those of you that are just joining us, well, welcome. We have a special, I would say it's a special episode today because we have a guest, our first ever guest.
Yes.
We are bringing on Jonathon James, or Jonathon Charles James, as he likes to be called.
Either or.
Jack of all trades, aspiring actor, as well as used to be creative designer or graphic designer, and former football athlete, UNLV alumni. I had to throw that out there. What am
Go
I
Rebels.
missing? He writes a little, both music and creatively.
Mm.
Pretty much just well-rounded human being, who we are bringing on to have a much needed discussion today,
Yay.
about, I would say about all things his life, but more so just, addiction, mental health, upbringing and all of that. But I'll let him describe that. So, welcome, Jonathon James.
Yay. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank you, Allie, for the great introduction. And is it Ayana or Ayana?
Ayannah.
Ayana. And
Mhm.
Ayana for bringing me onto the podcast. I'm super happy to be here. They're definitely grateful, thankful. I appreciate you both.
We
Sure.
are glad to have you.
Yes, I'm so excited about this.
Word. So let's jump into it, I guess, huh? Let's jump into it.
We really need sound
Um
effects because I just want to be like beep, 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 like
I know, a little board or something.
Yep, all that needed. So as you folks listening have already heard, my name is Jonathon James. Born and raised here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I am 31 years old, born on March 2nd, 1992 at 9:25 p.m. I know it all.
I was gonna say that's
Um,
really surprising.
no,
That is
what I'm saying, it's I feel like most people that kind of like dabble around in certain beliefs
Mm.
tend to know all those things, which I do not. But like I said, born and raised here in Las Vegas, Nevada. My dad was in the Air Force, so we stayed on the Air Force base for a long while, as well as Eagle Trace Apartments down off of Craig and Nellis
in the hood.
in the hood. Um, and currently live in the same house that I've lived in like my whole entire life. Went to Lomi Herd um, elementary school, I want to say, before Elizondo Elementary, and then Sedway before Finley, and then Canyon Springs High School, where me and Allie met a long time ago.
No, not that long ago, y'all. Not that
Hey,
long ago, y'all.
hey, I'm cool being 31 years, you know what I'm saying? However many years removed from high school that is. Don't care. Um, Canyon Springs, and then like Ali said, I did play football. I actually started um playing physical, like fully padded football in high school. I didn't play before that. Only played like flag and a couple other things. And yeah, played in high school, played in college as well at UNLV for about 3.5, 4 years. Studied, got my degree in graphic design. Worked for creative services over there at UNLV for a while, as well as a smaller firm afterwards. And then from there, just kind of been like she said, just a pursuit of a full-time career as an actor. I'm in between, did music for a while, still do dabble here and there. And yeah, I still write as well. So, I'm a creative in the
Yeah,
truest sense, as you would say.
definitely background. Thank you for sharing a part of your story.
Mhm.
Now, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the topic that we definitely wanted to bring you on for was
Mhm.
addiction. So I would really like for you to share with our listeners just, your upbringing, your story, kind of what is your story? What is, who is Jonathan James and what has he been through?
Lots of things.
Mhm.
Some things my own, I guess you would say, choosing and doing, and other things kind of like uh, you know, inadvertent.
Mhm.
Um, but I guess the main kind of the the call to action, as us writers say.
You're gonna have to elaborate on
Um,
that for those who are
right,
not writers.
right. Well, somebody out there is. But when I was about 5 or 6, I can't really remember. My I have two brothers as well. There's a little bit more
Yes.
sprinkled onto the story, but I have two brothers. My oldest brother's name is Stefan, and my middle brother was named Deshaun. And the reason why Deshaun is brought up at this point in the story is because around 5 or 6 years old, Deshaun committed suicide.
Mhm.
Um, Me and my mom, we were like putting something together for some kind of project I was working on, in whatever grade or whatever. I don't know how old, what level of school people go to at 5 or 6 years old. But we were working on a project, um, and then we heard the gunshot go off, and she grabbed me, came inside the house because she wasn't. She probably, knew, or maybe she didn't, but she grabbed me, pulled me inside the house. And we came to the bathroom, and the bathroom was locked. And then she found a way to get inside, and then, opened up the door briefly. And Deshaun was like laid out on the ground. And she closed the door as fast as she could, and took me out front of the house and went across the street and called the police and all types of stuff. And kind of, I think that was like the beginning of the emergence of a lot of other problems and issues that my family was facing at the time. Everybody, without wanting or maybe possibly knowing, like not even needed, like this thing happened, and then everything else just kind of like bubbled to the surface. All of the stuff that was going on at home between my parents, um, they weren't necessarily getting along. My dad, God bless him, we have the greatest relationship these days. But a lot of money issues. He's alcoholic. He was also cheating on my mom for a very, very long time.
Mhm.
Um, my mom was going through a lot with her job at the time. She didn't really facing all the problems and the weight of kind of juggling the household and being the most responsible parent in the house. My oldest brother, who had just recently moved out during that time, or at least from what I could remember, he was going through all of his, starting to smell himself a little bit more, coming into his own as a man and trying to find his own way. So this was just kind of the event that, once again, like I said, just everything just started to bubble to the surface and kind of like turn topsy turvy for years after that. Um, and yeah, there was just me, um, baby of the family, kind of just not really truly knowing too much about what all of this meant at the time, and um, having to kind of just sit quietly and take it all in and respond to it the best way I could.
So you mentioned, obviously losing your middle brother.
Mhm.
And like one of the first questions that comes to mind is, I know you were young when it happened, but did
Mhm.
your family get involved in any type of like grief counseling, or like how did you guys respond to that from like a mental health aspect?
I know that my mom told me maybe like 2, 3, maybe like 4 years ago that her and I went to counseling.
Mm.
I don't remember any of that. I don't remember going. I don't remember. She said that the lady had me like sit down and write picture or not write pictures, but draw pictures, and talk to her about what happened and what I experienced. I don't remember anything. Um, and I didn't know that she went. She didn't really kind of like go into detail as to, you know, what took place during that time for her. But yeah, I mean, I was told that her and I went to grief counseling
Mm.
for a while. It's for my dad. You know, he went over to the homie's house, drank, kicked it.
Mm.
Did the best that he did. The only thing he knew how to do was to cope irresponsibly at the time.
Mm.
Um, and as for my brother, I don't know. I think he kind of like dove further into to work. He was playing basketball at the time. He walked on at UNLV. He played semi-pro for a while. Um, I think he kind of just, relationships, like all different types of stuff. Like he just did what he felt he had to kind of get through it. Everybody kind of coped the way that they could. I
Mm.
just didn't know what was going on because I'm like 5, 6, however old I was. I just didn't know what was going on. But yeah, I don't remember. I
Mm.
don't remember.
Mm.
I think before you go on, I think that's such a interesting and like perfect depiction about, especially when children go through trauma, how easy it is for our brain to kind of block it out, in this like self-protection that it goes through.
Hmm.
So the ability, not that the therapy even wasn't useful or whatever that is, but to cause less trauma when looking back is to block out as much as possible. So you have these key events, which is why a lot of people who go through similar or other traumatic things are very
Hmm.
much like I remember a key point and I remember a point here and a point there, but everywhere in
Hmm.
between is just a blur. Um, so that's when you said that, I was like, wow, that's like a even something so positive, right? You think going to therapy, you're getting what people are
Hmm.
telling you to do, go to the grief counseling, and even
Yeah.
that can be so like tricky in that kind of section that our brain goes through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that, I think that it's kind of it's put me in position that Allie knows. It put me in position that now, as an adult man, I've wanted to, reach out to some sort of counseling of some kind or therapist of some kind, but I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. It's like, you know, I have very short memories of that part of my life, like you said, like very like key points, this and that and
Mm.
this and that. But with with how good you folks are at your jobs, anything can happen in that in that conversation. So it's I don't know. I think that's also why I'm here having this conversation because with y'all because I took a lot of that stuff out on myself, all of those, all through high school, through my 20s. And yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think it's not only great that you brought that point up, but it's very relatable. The hesitation, I don't want to speak for you and say that it's fear because I don't
Oh,
know.
it is.
Okay, all right.
Oh, it
So
is for
fear,
sure.
right? So the fear
Yeah.
of what could come, or possibly being, what we would term like re-traumatized, right?
Mhm.
Are things that I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I'm gonna say it could happen if you don't have the right therapist, if you're not seeking the right type of
Yeah.
treatment.
Hmm.
Um, but luckily you have people that, oh, y'all can't see me, but I'm putting my finger up. For those of you that are listening to us, but you have access to kind of learn the different types of,
Hmm.
treatment that's out there, and things that you could seek out to kind of help you with, dipping your toe in, but also just having more information about what's to come,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not um it's not that you would go to therapy and then automatically be re-traumatized, right? If you have a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
therapist, they're gonna know how to just work with you, build rapport with you, and then if they're good at what they're doing, they're not just going to dive right into the trauma. They're going to
Yeah.
meet you where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
And I think that's a lot of what people misunderstand about therapy is they feel like we're just here to like pull just
Mm.
information out of you. But
Yeah.
I tell my clients, I'm not going to go where you don't want me to go, and I'm not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do, because in time these things can be healed, but if you don't want to heal them now, we don't need to. If you don't want to
Right.
dig into your, deepest darkest secrets, we don't have to, nor do you have to heal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just keeping that in mind, one for you, but also for our listeners, that like understanding that um a good therapist is going to know how to navigate those very traumatic experiences so that you're not being re-traumatized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think another thing to add onto that is just that I like to think in an analogy the same as like when you go through a drive-through, even though therapy is definitely not the same. But when somebody gets your order wrong, you take the receipt back and you say, "Hey, this is not it," or "You're missing my fry. You put onions on this," like whatever that looks like, you vocalize.
Mm.
So it's the same self-advocacy that you need in therapy, because
Mm.
if your therapist is going to that area and you feel like it's re-traumatizing and you feel like there's maybe it's too soon to talk about it, you're not ready to talk about it. Um, Maybe it is one of those things where you don't have the greatest of therapists and they're just like jumping in trying to get to it and get it fixed. It's the
Mhm.
self-advocacy of like, hey, I'm not ready for this. This doesn't feel correct. Like, where are we going with this? And maybe we understand that, okay, every time I go to this therapist or this restaurant, they continue to get my order wrong. So maybe it's time to look somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the freedom of like, yes, the therapist is there. Yes, we are trained to understand how to do things, but nobody knows your story better than you. So being able to vocalize those. I don't like this. Last four sessions, I've been leaving crying. Like there's something, being able to
Mhm.
vocalize it. So that way, one, your therapist can address it, why it's looking like that. Or B, if they're not and they continue, maybe it's time to look for um, a new therapist.
Mm. And do you think that have you guys ever ran into what is it? What's the proper term? Is it patients or
Patient, client,
uh,
either or, interchangeable.
client, either or, people that are like super down to like, let's just go there. Let's just do
Hmm.
it. Let's just get it done. Because I feel like for me personally, I would have to like do that. I would just have to be like, you know what? Even if I am scared of all this stuff, let's just talk about it,
Hmm.
because I even looking back on the experience, one of the things that or at least what I, like I said, what I remember, but one of the things that have kind of like brought me a lot of like peace and understanding and solace over time was, for a while, I definitely thought that, I was alone after the fact because and I know that plenty of the people listening have experienced the exact same thing, the feeling of loneliness, like I'm the only person going through this, I'm the only person that understands, and all this different types of stuff um was like little bits of information like revealed kind of like to me over time through other people that kind of like let me know that our family as a whole wasn't alone,
Hmm.
and that a lot of the choices that were made thereafter um, were legitimately like your own choices and decisions that were made. One, and the reason why I say that, and the only thing that the thing that I'll bring up is that we have a neighbor, Mr. John. He doesn't live across the street from us anymore. But him and his two sons, Kiyoki and Kaimi, um, I was told by one of my other neighbors who my house and then their two houses were like the first houses built in our neighborhood. Um, but my other neighbor, Melissa, she told me a while back that Mr. John, Kiyoki, Kaimi, they came over and they cleaned up the bathroom. They
Hmm.
came over and filled in the hole where the gunshot was.
Hmm.
They cleaned up all the blood. They did all that stuff. Like they did all of the excess work and help so that my mom didn't have to, so that
Wow.
my dad didn't have to. Um, and it's so cool. Like it's so cool to like hear that over time that like in spite of all the things and all the decisions that I've made in my life throughout my 20s, um, like there was always people there that supported and wanted to help. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
it was cool. It's like it's cool to hear that people that like really rock with you like will do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? It's cool.
Yeah, it's
It's
always
cool.
healthy and important to have support systems.
Hmm.
And um yeah, it's that's wild. That's awesome.
I had no
Yeah.
idea. I only learned that like a couple years ago because
Mhm.
it kind of put a lot of stuff into perspective. Like um, all these like very at the time I was like, why are you talking to me about this? Like conversations I had with Mr. John out front of his garage. You know what I'm saying? Like different conversations me, Kiyoki and Kaimi would have, and they're older than me. But they would always like step in and try to be brothers. During the time that my dad was, dealing with his, alcoholism, Mr. John would always step in and try to be like a good father figure, a positive role model, as well as
Mm.
my brother, of course, and Mr. Danny across the street as well, and Melissa and Rachel and Audrey, being kind of like older sister, kind of like people and figures, people that I still admire and adore to this day. So it's like it's cool to in hindsight look at all of those things and trying to kind of like step back and realize like I don't remember too much, like they all played like an integral role in helping my mom, helping my dad, helping Stefan, and helping our family as a whole. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
can you kind of elaborate more on to like what came of, because you had mentioned how your brother coped, how your dad coped, how your
Hmm.
mom coped. And I know that you said that you were young when it happened,
Hmm.
but how did you end up internalizing and dealing with losing your brother? How did that impact your life?
Um, I would say that I kind of like dove headfirst into sports.
Mm.
Hmm.
Um, that was one of the things that kind of kept everybody happy, kept everybody around. Um, Stefan showed up to the games, and my dad was there, my mom was there, and they kind of um, found some sort of like peace or understanding with each other um, through me playing sports. So I just kind of got good at football on accident, dude. You know, it wasn't definitely wasn't on purpose. Um, but yeah, I would say that you know, after everything happened with Deshaun, um, my family slowly started to kind of like just drift apart.
Hmm.
And I experienced a lot of that stuff in high school. I didn't really talk too much about it. And yeah, I just, like I said, dove headfirst into sports.
What came after sports?
Um, Depression.
Mhm.
Because so I played football, like I said earlier, I played football all through high school. It helped a lot, but obviously it didn't fill any gaps or any holes or voids. Um, because it was just, it wasn't who I was, but I tried to make it my identity. I was kind of successful. Like for years, most people knew me only as JJ the football player or Jonathan the football player.
Me.
Um, right. So it was kind of like so before I get ahead of myself, played in college, walked onto the team in 2000 and the end of 2010 going into 2011, I think, um, and played for about 3.5, almost 4 years. And I quit before my senior season because it's a conversation I had with this this journalist. I did like a interview for the Las Vegas Sun.
Hmm.
And it was about being a walk on, and I was like one of the only guys that kind of made the team. There was a few other people. Jordan Butler, shout out to him if he ever listens to this podcast. Um, we called ourselves the Ferrari Boys because we hit the gas pedal at practice all the time. You know what I'm saying? But um, yeah, I'm having this conversation with the journalist, and he had spoken with the head coach at the time, and he had told me what the head coach said about me or his thoughts about me, and was that, he never really saw me as anything more than like a scout team player, not anybody that would end up traveling on the team anymore. And it
Mm,
just kind of, it just kind of was like almost like a shot through the, a sword through the chest or whatever, because I had a really bad back injury um, playing over there, and like I went and got cortisone shots and went right back to practice like the following week, and um, was like really put my mind and my body on the line for this team, only to kind of like be told that, well, he don't, he's all right, he's cool.
mm,
Um, so I quit, and then I ended up like failing a bunch of classes. Like I had just lost it. I made football my identity. And then once that was gone, I just kind of didn't know what else to do. I didn't know where to kind of like put all of my energy and my time and effort into. Because I didn't really pay too much attention to any of my classes at the time. I wasn't really like dialed in as much as I probably should have. Failed like the same math class 3 or 4 times in a row.
oh,
Um, yeah, I was kind of so it made it sad. It made me even more sad anytime I would like go to a gas station or run into people from high school or um wherever I was, and I was still dealing with the fact that I was no longer a football player. And they'll be like, "Oh shoot, JJ, you going to the NFL? You going to play football? You going to do this?" And I would have to be like, "Nah," and explain
mm,
the same story every single time. That quit playing. They said this about me, and I believed them. And now I'm, you know, working check to check.
mm,
So yeah, that, and then trying to keep my grades afloat in college was just kind of tough, for a long time, for a very long time.
yeah.
Um,
So, sounds like it, like you said, you kind of just, definitely took like a
yeah.
dive and
Hmm. Oh, and it only got worse.
oh,
It
and
only got worse.
there's more. And there's
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which I think it kind of just is a testament really to all that you had already previously experienced from before that moment, right? Like you're
Hmm.
talking about like your upbringing, your family separating, all of these things that you clinically in my mind, I'm like, you didn't really process through. You
Hmm.
just use sports as although it's positive, right? But you use sports to kind of suppress and distract yourself um from all of that. And so of
Hmm.
course, what comes when you no longer have that coping mechanism?
Hmm.
Depression, right?
Yeah.
Oppression or anxiety, anything that's already there just amplifying itself.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, that's wild. Hey,
And
you got
it like hit hard. As soon as I stopped
Mm.
playing football, as soon as I was done, it was like I'm like learning more information about stuff that like I had no idea was a part of like who I was as a person. Like depression being, and correct me if I'm wrong, depression being um maybe hereditary. Like I was like I don't like I
really?
didn't know. Yeah, and I had no idea what I was experiencing, why I was experiencing. I just knew that I didn't have football anymore, and like I needed to find something. I needed to
Mm.
find something else,
Mm,
something, whatever it was going to be at the time. And that's why I said earlier in the conversation that a lot of this stuff was like, in a way like my own doing.
mm,
But, I just needed to find something to cope with it.
Yeah. I think that again it's another example or even a picture of how society has focused, especially in men and boys, this idea of like put all your pain into certain things. So a lot of
Hmm.
parents will say that with sports, some parents with music, but majority of the time we see it in sports. So I always think it's interesting that when players get injured and they can't play, they start falling depressed. And I think it's not by coincidence, it's not fully by the injury. I think a lot of the times you're stuck with this. I have all these feelings that I can't take out how I normally would. And so now
Yeah.
I actually am coming face to face with some of the things that I've been able to avoid because when I feel some type of way, I take it out on something. So football, you're hitting other people, tackling,
Hmm.
basketball, it's like this mind game between you and the other person. So I always think it's interesting that people, when looking at sports, are very fast to blame it on injuries, concussions, which do play a part.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's solely it. I think it's exactly what you're talking about, is people now have to face with what they've kind of been told to push down or like man up, like macho.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Absolutely.
I intern at I interned at some of the jails here in San Bernardino. And so with working with the men, it's something that we talked about all the time. Like don't cry, don't talk to anybody. That's girl stuff. That's what you expect from women. We can't do that. We're supposed to
Hmm.
just kind of like act like it doesn't phase you. So as human beings, let alone men, women, doesn't matter. As a human being with the mental capacity, you can only take so long before something's going to erupt. And then once your coping skills, whether healthy or unhealthy, are taken from you, you're left to grasp at um grasp at whatever is around you. So whatever coping skills somebody's using next to you, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, we latch onto it because ours have been taken. So we have
Mm.
to find something new, and we have to find
Yeah.
something new fast because nobody wants to sit in this, especially when we don't know how. So I'll rephrase that. It's not that people don't want to sit in it. We don't know what to do in the sitting. It just makes us feel
Mhm.
sad. It makes us feel down. It makes us feel really dark. And we'll do whatever
Hmm.
we have to get out of it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do want to clarify a little bit. I know that in spite of all the things that my family did go through at the time, um, and a lot of those problems existed before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um, I'm like my oldest brother is, I want to say, 15 years older than I am. Um, and I'm legitimately the baby of the family. Um, and all the stuff, all of like they were kind of like coming into their own like men and their own people and kind of like coming to a better understanding of themselves at the time,
Mm-hmm.
of all those things. And like I said, a lot of those problems existed way before I did. So I don't blame like my family at all for the my own personal experiences. I know that there for a long time I was like an angry kid. Um, I was an angry guy. Um, and I don't looking back on all those things, like all the, like my brother told me that, and it's something that, I've kind of like adopted into like my own memory. It's his own memory, but the very last thing that him and Deshaun did was fight in the middle of the street. Um,
Mhm.
he, him and my brother, it was around Mother's Day, which is this month. My brother's birthday is this month. So it's
Mm.
kind of all tough for my mom.
Yeah.
Um, but they used to buy like my mom like a super fancy card and maybe a few other things. And one year, the year that Deshaun passed, um, they I think Stefan says that he was being cheap, or Deshaun said that he was being cheap. So they got into it. They fought in the middle of the street. Stefan had moved out of the house at that time, and that was the last time that Stefan drove off, and that was the last time that he saw Deshaun alive.
Mm.
So it's, I don't blame Stefan for wanting to get out of the house, for wanting to go and do his own thing and spend time, you know, with, people and at places with, what I'm saying, like doing his own thing. I don't blame him for, the way that he coped. I don't blame my dad for going over to his friend's house and drinking and getting drunk all night. That was, that's all he knew. That's all he knew. I don't blame my mom for being quiet. She didn't really like to talk anymore. She was always, I called it at the time, before kind of like having an understanding of what she was going through, her being bitter, her being angry and upset, you know, but that's just all she knew how to do. That's just all they all knew how to do. Nobody had any kind of like healthy way of trying to figure out what was next for the family. You know what I'm saying? I don't blame anybody for the choices that I made moving forward,
Yeah.
as an adult.
No,
No?
definitely
Mm-hmm.
great that you clarified that, and also just sharing a little insight on just how people and families and dynamics, they all cope differently, right?
Hmm.
So definitely understanding that for sure. So we are going to take a break and we will be right back.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with John and just listening to a story, just diving into all that it contains.
Yeah. Welcome back. All right.
Right. So we kind
So,
of before break we kind of left off talking about like just how how your family had handled everything, and
mhm,
also how as you grew older you started to handle it, your brother's loss, a certain way, and also clarifying that saying that you put a lot of that on yourself, right?
mhm,
um and that you don't blame them for anything, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
In therapy, we would call that a great reframe. If you if
mm,
you didn't already have the perspective and had to learn that perspective, that's a really great way of turning it into something that's helpful, rather than living in this unhelpful mindset of blaming, blaming your brother, blaming your mom, blaming your dad.
Yeah.
mhm,
So being able to do that or have that technique or that strength and skill is huge, because I'm sure you noticed that once you came to the realization, probably, and or had that mindset of it's not their fault that these things happened to me, or that I went through these things. I'm sure there was some form of like, probably like guilt or shame that was like kind of released from you, right?
yeah. I would say that as well. But it didn't really come until like late, like way later on though. It was a lot of, I think I tried really hard to
Mm-hmm.
make it their fault. I
Mm,
tried really, really hard. Um, because it wasn't even, like we spoke about previously, it wasn't even just about, the thing that happened to Deshaun. It was about everything that happened afterwards, the family falling apart, and Stefan doing his thing, and yeah, I guess I was told later on in life that he thought that I was spoiled, so he used that as an excuse to not really have too much or the best relationship with me um, growing up. My it, I, every I tried really hard to like take as much that I could from every situation and just like make it into the reason why I was making all of the bad decisions I was making at the time. Make it all about them as opposed to, you know, me being somebody that experienced something at a young age and didn't know how to cope with it and is now trying my best to the same way that they did when it happened, you know? So yeah, I'm glad that the reframe exists. And no matter how long it took for me to come to a place to have that reframe, um, I'm happy that I did because I think that, my relationship with my dad is great. My relationship with my mom is great. Um, Me and my brother, we're like so far apart in age. It's kind of like hard to like a lot of the same things, but we definitely have a better relationship than we did like a long time ago. So it's cool. Good stuffs.
good stuff.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so can you talk a little bit more about um just because you had mentioned you tried really hard for a really long time to be like mad at them,
Hmm.
where that puts you and how that, because I know you also mentioned before the break you noticed that, I don't know if it came before or after, but you noticed once you stopped playing sports that you got depressed, and I'm wondering, did all this happen at the same time? Did this happen, at different parts of your life where you held that, blame against them before you got depressed, while you were depressed? How did that play out in your life?
I think in maybe like small kind of like because I could be petty sometimes and passive aggressive.
Yep.
So I think that in many ways, you're funny. Um, I think in many ways, a lot of those like it came out in that way that I was less attentive to maybe some of my chores around the house, or I was um spent more time out of the house than I did there, and reached out to other people that took places as brother figures and father figures, and um, you know, certain means of moral support, I guess you would say, as opposed to kind of like, and in doing so, um, I kind of created my own narrative,
Hmm.
um, that my mom was this way, so the family turned out this way, and my dad did this, so the family turned out this way, and my brother was all the way over there and did that, so the family turned out this way. So I was trying really, really hard, like I said, to make it all of their fault by like all of the stuff that was like given to me, and maybe misinterpreting those things. So it kind of like drew me further into myself, and I became more isolated and more just to myself and very selective about who I talk to, who I talk to any of my feelings or emotions or things that I was maybe experiencing at the time about. Um, and after football, having like that one thing that kind of like kept some sort of like sanity within my mind. Once it was gone, it was like I didn't have that. So now I was really angry at everybody and really, retreated into myself and really isolated. At one point, I like blacked out all my windows in my room. I didn't like spend a lot of time. Like I just kind of spent a lot of time with me.
Hmm.
And as we all know here, the enemy, that's exactly what the enemy wants.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They never chase the pack, or he never chases the pack. Always chases the gap.
Mm.
Mm.
And the further you separate, and the further you separate, the
Man.
easier it is to get attacked.
Mm.
Um,
You preaching.
and hey, I'm just here talking. And I mean, and to be honest with you, I like definitely prayed before coming on to this podcast that, God would be able to use me appropriately and allow me to speak in a way that is, pleasing to him, but also, in a way that can help the audience out in any way possible. So,
Yeah.
I want to, um, be as honest and as open as possible about, my experience, my faith, and how my faith kind of like came back around full circle to help out with these things.
Mm-hmm.
No, we definitely appreciate that. Um,
For sure.
so it, what happened after you turned into like this big ball of anger
Hmm.
after football? What
Um,
happened?
so I just kind of I needed like some kind of like release, right? And that came in the form of alcohol.
Hmm.
Um, I was so anti alcohol and drugs and everything. Going into my 20s, I was like 22 or 23 when I first had like my ever first sip of alcohol ever. I was super just anti. Even on my 21st birthday, everybody else was like, drinking and having a good time and doing all this. And I was just like, I'll just have a cupcake. I'll just have some Sprite. Whatever it was at the time. But I was so anti everything, just
Mm.
anti everything, just because of, my dad, and how he was. And that's like another story in of itself. Like the experiences I had with that man as a teenager, it's just completely different story. But that was my choice, and that was my like means of coping after I stopped playing football. And it was kind of like propped up even further by me working at the nightclub.
Mm.
So
Before
I
you
had a
get into that,
friend. Hmm.
do you remember like the pinnacle moment of like the party that you went to or the event that happened when you first drank and you knew that it
Oh
was
yeah.
a good
Oh yeah, I
time?
remember.
Okay.
I remember. It was on my birthday, and I went with some friends that I was really close with at the time to Encore Beach Club, but it was night swim, right? So you go out there and everybody's having a good time. They're like, JJ, you gonna drink? JJ, you gonna drink? JJ, you gonna drink? I'm like, sure, sure,
Peer pressure.
sure. Yeah, peer pressure. Yeah, peer pressure. Yeah. So what they did was they was like, here, take this, drink it, and then we'll get you another one. I was like, all right. And I had no idea what a an adios was
Wow, they set you
or how
up.
much, right, or how much alcohol was inside of the adios. So I knocked the first one back, like, oh, this is good. It's blue. It's like juice, you know? And then I just found myself wandering in circles around EBC and just smiling and laughing and giggling and just having a grand old time. And then they brought the second one around, and I don't remember too much of that night.
Mm.
But that
And
was, but it was so, it was like it was almost like the the thrill of doing something I had never done before, and like the possibility of I had never came into the house late. I had never stayed out late. I was a very good, like, I stayed in the dorms at UNLV my freshman year. My grades might have like slipped a little bit, and um might have like went to parties and stuff like that, but I never drank. And I was good. I was like a good kid. I was like a good dude. I just tried my best to do all those things. But we go out that first time, and I'm like, man, this is what it's like. This is what party is like. This is what everybody is like been so like hype about like for forever, and ditch days in high school and like all those different things that people did, and like I never participated in. And now on the verge of dealing with the fact that I don't play football anymore. All of these feelings and emotions from when I was a kid catching up to me, and now having the opportunity to kind of like mask those things and push them off to the side again.
Mm.
I'd like chomped at the bit. I was like chomping at the bit for something like this, whether I knew it or not. And I just took the opportunity and ran with it.
Ayana, did you have something?
You go first.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, so Anna,
Mhm.
if your question comes first, go ahead and throw it out there. But uh, as you're kind of in this place where you're trying to find different things to cope with,
Mhm.
um, was it just alcohol?
At the time, yeah, it was just like partying, going and kicking it, and you know, pulling up to different parties with people that I don't really kick it with too often anymore, or don't hang out with anymore, and just partying and going out and partying and going out and just being a part of like the scene, like the Clark County School District can be spoken for itself in many ways. Some people say that they breed us to work on the strip, and become bottle
Okay.
service girls, and
Mm-hmm.
and and all type, just they breed us to be bartenders and all type, whatever the case may be.
Mm.
I know for a fact that there's a bunch of great teachers. I can count them on my hands and toes of people that I've ran into, elementary school to middle school to high school, and even in college, people that like truly make an impact. But I will say that it's just like all of this, like this city is just in a cacophony of just things and experiences. And for somebody that doesn't have the emotional intelligence or like the wherewithal to kind of like understand his or her place amidst all these things, um, they'll get lost for sure. And I got lost.
Mm.
Mm. So,
But
A,
yeah,
you had
it
a
was
question?
alcohol. But yeah, at the time it was just alcohol.
Got you.
Yeah. No, my question was a similar, was basically the same thing, only because what I found is that everybody goes through coping skills and no one coping skill lasts forever. So even healthy
Mm,
coping skills. So
yes.
journaling may work for 3 weeks, but after 3 weeks, or not 3 weeks, it could be even longer. Like this
Mm,
one coping skill could last you 5 years, but then at that 5 years you feel like it's not working anymore, you have to add to it, right? So the ability for the coping skill to work, for us to manage or disguise our emotions,
Hmm.
they go through in moments. So that was going to be my next, because obviously healthy or unhealthy, at a certain point a coping skill may stop, so we have to add to it or make it more intense. But yeah.
So did your coping become more intense once
Did.
you got used to the alcohol?
It did.
Once you built
It
your
did.
tolerance?
Oh no, it did. It did. It definitely did. It definitely did.
And before,
Um,
sorry, JJ, before you get
yeah.
into that, I also want you to keep in mind, I'm wondering as well, like, where was your faith at
Oh yeah.
Oh,
during this
yo.
time period
So
too?
I grew up at Calvary Southern Baptist Church. Um, went there throughout, as soon as after Deshaun passed away was when my family like dove deep into our faith.
Mm.
And I feel like that's most people's story. You experience some sort of form of loss, and then you turn back to, what you only thing you kind of like know that can maybe possibly help for, people that are like young in their walk with Christ. Um, and yeah, we went to Calvary Southern Baptist. I grew up there throughout, most of my childhood. Um, and then going into college, I did the thing that most people do. We're reading the Bible. We don't have any like true foundation in our faith or in our relationship with God. So we're like questioning almost everything. And it's like we don't have any like theological understanding of the Bible. So we
Mm.
like look for all of in every nook and cranny, trying to find like um, contradictory statements and all these different things. And then, the more I was like, coming into my own, you know, understanding of myself and like kind of like having um my own opinions and like different friend groups and circles and all those different things. I kind of stepped further and further and further and further away from my faith until I still wasn't in my word. I wasn't going to church.
Mm.
I wasn't doing a lot of things. But the funniest thing about it all is that all of my friends, even the people that I was hanging out with at the time, and even my best friend DJ, who was there throughout all those things, throughout
Shout
all
out
those
to
times. Shout out DJ, shout out Damon Kelly, my boy, my brother for life. Um, Everybody I hung out with believed in God.
you. Mm.
Everybody I hung out with had the exact same background. I think we never really talked too much about it. Um, Went to church at one point, but then maybe something happened or something changed, and then they stopped.
Hmm.
So not being in community, not having that kind of um, uh, that thing to fall back on or fall forward into, um, kind of was the reason why we out until 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning,
Mm. Mm.
um, at parties or at this club or this after hour spot or whatever the case may be. But during that time, faith was not even a thing. Maybe I
Mm.
prayed occasionally, had conversations that sparked my faith again, maybe occasionally, but it wasn't there.
And you had mentioned that so it wasn't there, but also it had increased when she started working at a day club.
Hmm.
Can you pick up on that?
Yeah. So my one of my good friends at the time, um, still a good friend of mine. His name's Lino. Um, he's a solid guy, man. Me and him have like his like I think his birthday is like March 9th
Hmm.
or something. My birthday's March 2nd. Like we always like kind of like like just cool. I don't know. It's just like always a cool thing. Like we kind of like always vibe with each other. But Lino was working security um at the club at the time, and I was, my first, I would say like actual like official like bigger job was like working at a warehouse. And then from there I worked at Nike, and
Mm.
I was working at Nike while I was playing football over at UNLV. Um, Only a few days out of the week because I needed time for practice and school and this, that, and the other. So I stopped playing football. Um, and Nike wasn't paying as much as like, it was what it was at the time. Most teenagers um work at Nike for the discount.
Mm.
Um
Literally, our
and yeah,
whole
and you know what,
high
the
school
discount was
worked at
popping.
Nike.
The discount was popping. You know what I'm saying? It was a great discount. But
Nike was
um
where it was at, apparently. Like
yeah, yeah,
went
everybody
through
everybody
Nike.
was over there. So at the time, I just needed more, money, and I didn't have too much any like experience with like um um I don't think that I had like maybe the best social skills at the time. I don't know because
Mm.
I was like spending so much time with myself. And Lena was like, "Yo, we hiring security. Um, you just finished playing football. You still kind of diesel. You know what I'm saying? Pull up, put in the application. We'll see what's up." So I ended up applying over at the club at Dre's nightclub and beach club. Ended up getting the job, and all I did was stand in the same spot for the most part, and you know talk to girls, and then go to the bar after we got off work, or go downstairs to after hours, or find some place to go hang out, and that just became like my life for like
Mm.
4 or 5 years. Well, I switched over from security to being a server assistant as well. So, and with being a server assistant, you have like more access to like, because security can only do so much because of security. But as a server assistant, we like have outings, and somebody will set up a bottle or two at some club, and then we'll show up to that club and hang out because maybe some people knows promoters, or some people knows people that work at this club, and whatever the case may be. But I was like in this part of the scene, and um in the mix of things, like at all times. There was
Mm.
like one summer that uh um went down to after hours every single night after work, and I worked Thursday through Sunday. So we would get off around 3. I would spend 4 or 5 more hours down in after hours, um, get, messed up in layman's terms. Um, and yeah, start the week over. Still find time to go to school. Um, so yeah, I was like, it was bad for a long time, bad for a long time.
Yeah, so it sounds like it kind of just like snowballed for
Hmm.
you.
Yeah, yeah, and even into like, because alcohol was one thing, and it was fun, but it got to a point where like I remember, one of the first some of the first couple of times that I would party with a lot of people that worked in nightlife. Like these people like used to drinking, like they're functioning like a lot of people, no shame in their game, but a lot of people are like functioning alcoholics. They'll like get up and drink and go about their days and work and do this and that and the other. Do a couple bumps in the bathroom, be solid for the whole entire, I'm saying, whole entire day, whatever the case may be. And me, you know, fresh into the environment, I've only ever dabbled in alcohol and drinking. I would go to like I said, my first couple of experiences at some of these parties, like um, I would find myself ended up on people's phones, videos of me like throwing up in the bathroom or passed out here, all types of stuff, videos, pictures, and a lot of times, a lot of that stuff will like circle around the club because we partying with the same people, we're hanging
Mm.
out with the same people. So now everybody has like this image or idea of you, and that was never like my intention. I just was like this like lost puppy in a sense. You know what I'm saying? I just was like trying to like fit in and find my place and do what everybody else was doing and you know, try to feel like I said, fit in. So when the alcohol wasn't like it was doing nothing but making me more sad and more depressed. I'm like, dang, like I thought we was having fun, but now we not. I thought
Mm.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was all fun and games, and now it's not. So what was once like the fun coping mechanism was now like a because alcohol is a depressant, it's a downer.
Hmm.
So now I'm like way worse mentally and physically.
Mm,
emotionally than I even started coming into it. Because like I said, it was fun at first, you know, and now I'm searching elsewhere.
mm. That's so good. I think one of the points that you bring up, or one of the things that makes me think about when you're talking about the people that you're hanging out with and their lifestyles and all that that looks like,
Hmm.
looking back or even thinking in that moment, um, were there any support or different styles of support that you would have wished you would have had either access to or that you had in a person at that time?
Hmm. Um, that's tough. I don't know. Think I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Like as somebody who's always kind of shouldered my stuff, I don't think I ever like looked. You know, I definitely caught myself at a lot of times during that time, like wanting somebody to just talk to or vent to about these things that wasn't venting or talking to me about these things while everybody's under the influence. You know, everybody's only honest about anything when they drinking or when they, you know, on this drug or whatever the case may be. Um, so as far as support is concerned, I would say that um, I don't know if I don't know if I was looking for support at the time, but I would say that I do maybe wish um, that I did maybe have somebody to like say like, hey man, like just add like you are you good, bro? Like you
Mm,
this ain't you know you be out here like tripped out, man. Like it's like you are you going through stuff? Like what's going on? Like you be out way too often. And
Mm,
maybe somebody, you know, maybe somebody did. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe somebody did, or maybe somebody tried.
Mm,
Um, but I don't think I was aware at the time. I don't think I
mm,
was aware. I was just like too caught up in me and what I was experiencing and how I was coping with it and how I was dealing with it and this, that, and the other. And um, you know, I think that the natural thing from there for most people, maybe not, I don't know, maybe not. But I was like trying to like find like some sort of like relationship of some kind. I was like, man, you know, I'm not having fun by myself, or, you know, I'm not fulfilled with, you know, what I've created, and it's no longer fun anymore. Maybe if I share these experiences with somebody else, or maybe if I have somebody else to, you know, go through this stuff with, um, maybe I'll feel better.
mm.
That's what, so.
so it sounds like it definitely turned into like a yearning for you of wanting somebody or some form of support. And I
Mhm.
think it's just, for our listeners, it's that's a common experience, not just within addiction or, when you're struggling with dealing with trauma, but just in general. We all are, we're relational people. And so I think that yearning is very natural, whether we're under substances or not, or going through something or not. And I think that's where things like therapy are helpful, just overall in general, because you have that unbiased person there on the other end, right? To
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
listen, to vent to if you need to. Um, and that I always tell my clients, therapy is an open door. Like you will always have access to therapy because there will always be a therapist there willing to listen, right?
Hmm.
And no, we're not just there to get paid because quite frankly, we don't get paid enough. I'm gonna be transparent here on this podcast.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I think that's very great that you brought that point up. And it begs another question, and kind of, where probably the last question that we would probably have, because I feel like you could probably elaborate on this one, is what was the turning point for you? When did the story change?
Hmm. I would say that so I met a girl during my time working at the club. And I was like sold, like this is it. Um, and she, in many ways, was so very passionate and just like nobody I'd ever like been with or been around. Because I dated someone in high school, maybe dated in college a little bit. Um, but but I think that with her, she was just like a, she was just different in so many ways, and we met at the, at a kind of like crucial time for the both of us. She had just been through some stuff, or like went through, like was experiencing maybe a breakup at the time. And I was like this, just like Allie says, like a ball of just anger, and didn't know where to put any of this stuff. And like I'm sad all the time. I'm drinking a lot, and you know, um, and we met and we started dating. But little did I know she was still like she was on the back end of her like party phase of life. So from alcohol it went to coke,
Mm.
and me and her was just, we would like, just like the most toxic situation ever. Like we would just, when we would go party, we would go party. And again, it was one of those things where like I wasn't used to um this lifestyle that she was living at the time with
Mm.
her and her friends. So I was left and put in position to where, um, again, a lot of choices I made myself, but um, like her family and her friends kind of like had this image of me, because every time we would go out places, I would be out of here, blacked out, gone, throwing up someplace, passed out somewhere, this, that, and the other. Um, and it just got to a point between me and her that it was, I broke things off because I felt like this tug to like move. I gotta go,
Mm.
gotta move on. I have to, like, this is not only is it not working, but it's like bad for both of our health, you know?
Mm.
Mm.
Um, and in that sense, in so many where I definitely didn't turn out that way. I'm like I'm watering down the story for the sake of, you know, saving the tears and all of the craziness that went into the breakup. But it was just like, to just, it was bad for both of our health. It was
Mm.
needed. It was necessary. And I would say that that was kind of the turning point, because um, I had nothing left to kind of like latch onto.
Mm.
Um, you know, I had like binged. I went on like after we broke up, I went on like a 3, 4, maybe like, yeah, like maybe like 3 or 4 year like bender of nothing but just drinking and partying and drugs and going this place and going this place, and
Mm.
bad relationships and just all types of stuff for like years. And then I had nothing else to do but to look in the mirror.
Mm.
Mm.
Once it was all gone, I didn't have, I got fired from Dre's. Um, I was no longer part of the scene anymore. So a lot of the people that I associated with at the club, with the exclusion of maybe like a very small few, no longer talked to me, no longer associated with me, no longer reached out. I had alienated all the other people that I started getting close to before that, um, because of the relationship. So now all those things are gone. All I have left is these substances. I'm abusing the substances, and now that I want to make a change in my life of some kind, I have nobody else to answer to except for myself. I had nobody else to answer to, because all these things were happening. I kept all of the stuff a secret from my mom. Um, Not too many people knew who I was associating with, what I was doing, all the parties, all the drinking, drugs, all those things. I just kept a lot of stuff to myself. So, um, that was it. I remember after I got fired from Dre's, I went without a job for like 3, maybe like 4 months. I was leaving my house around the same time that I would usually leave to go to work over at the club. And I would tell my mom, going to work, but
Mm.
I'll be going out and dropping off applications and dropping off my resume at places, just trying to find like a job. I was just trying to find a job, trying to, do at least like somewhat better. Messed up my money a little bit, even more than I did when I was in a, relationship because she lived in California. So I was like driving back and forth all the time and a lot of stuff. Um, but I was just like, again, shouldering all this stuff and just trying to like make the most out of like all the mistakes that I had made and, be better for them. And yeah, I finally got a job over at what is it, at Coach, and I was doing working back of house. And remember one day I'm pulling into work, and I had like this like crazy anxiety attack
Mm.
in the parking garage. And it's only one of three that I've experienced in my life, and all three of them have been like terrible. But this one in particular, all I had in my mind was like, what am I doing? What are you doing? Where are you going? Like, God bless everybody that, works in back of house and stocks boxes and does all those things. But I knew that that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing.
Mm.
And I made all these decisions and done all these things and tried to be friends with all these people and tried to, you know, be somebody I wasn't for so many years. And then it just left me here sitting in this parking garage crying in my car. And all I could think to myself was like, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing? Um, and that day I quit that job and took a little bit of time and then found another job, which is where I work now, at the movie theater. Um, and yeah, it was still a battle from there up until this point in time. Um, but I think that once I kind of didn't have any of those friends or didn't want, I didn't want those friends
Mm.
and I didn't want to be tied to those different coping mechanisms and those different substances. And I didn't want to live the life that I wanted, that I was living at the time. And I didn't want um, to to be lost. That's the turning point. That was the turning point. I still had, like I said, it was still a battle. I still wasn't secure in my faith at the time. I still was, all those things. But I think that once I kind of broke down in my car and was like, I don't want to live like this no more. That was the point in time where, I had nothing but myself to look in the mirror and, try to make the best decisions moving forward.
Mm. That's so good. I do have another question, but I'll ask it when we come
Hmm.
back. Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. But I just wanted to ask, one, I think your story is I think it's funny that at the beginning you talked a lot about feeling alone, feeling this like you're the only one in there. And just to hear it, not even fully all the way through, but just to get to this point, I know Allie knows you. So for me and the listeners, as a listener's perspective, this is super new. And I just think about how not only inspirational, but familiar, comforting, possibly affirming to them that'll be just hearing your story in all the different ways that you've gone about it and how it can normalize something that makes someone feel so isolated. So I think um, I'll save that for the spiritual our little circle along at the end, but I think your story is amazing and what a comeback. As a therapist, we don't always see those,
Mhm.
sometimes it's really it's easier for a person on the outside to be watching to just want to shake somebody and be like, do you get it? But I think the biggest thing that you said in the end was that you didn't want to use that coping skills. You didn't want to. So the want um, is what changes everything. So, speaking of that and kind of being done with the current coping skill or understanding that that's
Hmm.
not what you want, what did it look like kind of changing either coping skills or changing how you handled those emotions, situation, whatever that looked like?
Well, Um, thank you for your words. I do appreciate that very, very much so. And what I will say out to the all of the people listening, as cliche as it may sound, you're not alone.
Hmm.
You're not alone at all. It's um it's definitely can be difficult. And many times it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows and sugar cookies and gumdrops and whatever else, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, but I think that's all part of the process as well. And um I think that's okay. I think it's okay that, you're not the best version of yourself today.
Mm.
I think it's okay that you're not the greatest thinker or speaker or um, don't know how to compute or handle your feelings or emotions right now. But I think that once you want to, I think that there's plenty of resources and I think that there's plenty of ways to do so. Um, so thank you for what you said and thank you again just for having me. I appreciate y'all letting me like share all this information. There's some stuff that, um, hopefully I can squeeze in um, the back end of this conversation. But um, again, let me take a step backwards for a second. I do want to say again, I don't blame the girl I dated for any of the things that I experienced. Um, and I don't, I don't blame all those people that didn't want to be my friend anymore. You know what I'm saying? I don't blame. It's just, I take full responsibility for all the decisions I made, and I'm just glad that God was with me through everything. You know,
Yes.
that's what I'm thankful for. Um, and you know, I got to bring it up. I got to bring it up. So, before we speak any further about, again, before we talk about, the coping mechanism, the proper and the good ones these days, um, I've made two attempts at my own life. Made two. I like to say three. Sometimes looking back in hindsight, but the two times that I purposefully went out of my way um, to try to just, end it all. One, I was saved by my best friend again, my brother DJ,
DJ.
um, and a good friend of mine to this day. She used to play volleyball over at UNLV. Her name is Kola Balemaka. It's her whole name. So without them being there that one night, um, I'd probably be gone. So I'm thankful for them. And you know, at another point in time, I had almost drank myself into a coma and woke up in a hospital by myself. Um, had to go get my car by myself and make my way back home it's I'm just very grateful and very thankful that I'm still here, that when I can look back at all those things that, that happened in my life, it is nothing but I'm a walking, living testimony to God's glory and grace and mercy and love and um and so many other things. God's faithfulness. So many other things. Um, a lot of people lie about it and to talk about it, but I could legitimately be dead, yo. A
Mm.
lot of people lie about it, and like, just I could legitimately be dead, and I'm not because of God and good friends.
Praise
God
God.
and good friends. God and good
Good God and
friends.
good friends.
Yes, God and good friends for sure.
Yes.
But after all those things, present day Jonathan James. What is today? What's today? May what? May 11th,
11th. Yeah.
2023. Um, I am coming up on 10 months sober, I want to
Mm.
say.
Yes.
Can't see us, but we're cheering.
For sure.
Yeah.
This is why we need sound effects. Pew,
Ooh.
pew, pew,
Yeah.
pew.
For real. There you go.
Wing. 10 months sober. Um, and I'm not sure if we were on air when Allie brought it up, but I'm an actor.
Yes.
Um, you were, we did, we were live when you brought it. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So yeah, they know, they already know. But yeah, it's a part of my, it's a part of who I am. And I take two classes a week, one on Sunday evenings. It's more like theoretical, super heady, like New York stage and theater kind of like acting. Um, and then the Tuesday night class is character development and creation.
Mm.
The Sunday class is with Raymond Zananiri, great teacher. And the Tuesday night class is with Brianna Kennedy, who's been on Nickelodeon and a bunch of other things as well. Great teacher as well. So acting has become my thing. And in releasing, kind of like relinquishing all the things that was holding me back and holding me down over the years, I've truly been able to like embrace who I am as a person,
Mm.
as an artist. And I just told a good friend of mine yesterday, Greg, I told him that I don't think that, monetary success is one thing within the arts, but I don't think you'll have any true success or staying power in the arts if you're not honest
Mm.
with yourself. Um, and because art is important and being truthful within the realm of art, whatever, regardless the medium, is 100% important. It's 100% like of the utmost importance. Um, and I wouldn't have been able to be honest and truthful with myself if I hadn't come to this place and experienced all the things that I have up until this point.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know if I answered the question, but art and writing and reading and taking classes and um, going back to church. I've been going back to church for about like maybe like a year and a half now.
Mm.
Um, back in my word, tough. I just ordered a new daily devotional. It's only for 90 days. I don't know what's going to happen after that 90, but
Oh my God. You're gonna keep
um,
reading the Bible.
right. Um, but yeah, that's it. Those are all of what I consider to be healthy coping
Yeah,
mechanisms.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Call
Mm.
him the comeback kid, y'all. He is the
Boom.
comeback
Sure.
Georgetown Red kid. Y'all know
Right,
nothing about that unless you
right.
followed him on Instagram. But
That's my rapping moniker or name, no gang
Mm.
affiliation at all.
yeah, so there's no
I just
gang
live in
affiliation.
Northtown and
North
I
Las
have red
Vegas.
facial hair when it grows out, That's
Got
it.
the full
Northtown Red, super
explanation.
easy. Yep, super easy.
There you go. Bing, bang, boom.
Mm-hmm.
All right, A, close us out.
Yes, so thank you so much, John, again, not only for sharing your story, but your vulnerability. You're allowing to let two therapists kind of come in and pluck at it in a way that's not only hopefully helpful for you in some aspects, but also to our
Mm-hmm.
listeners. If anybody out there is struggling with the same or similar things, and you're wanting maybe in-person support or more direct help in that way, Allie and I did just want to list that there are places like Celebrate Recovery, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcohol Anonymous that you can join if you feel like that's something that you need. We always promote therapy, of course, but
Yes.
this is something else as well. And if you're wondering, Ayana, where can I find it? Especially these things we don't necessarily know. If you go to their website or you Google Celebrate Recovery NAAA, it'll take you to a locator where you can put in your address, your zip code, and it will find the one that's nearest to you. We just really wanted to add that in case anybody's wondering what are possible next steps for that. I
Right.
think Sorry, go ahead, Ellie.
No, I was just gonna add for just a little info. Celebrate Recovery is a faith-based 12-step program. I know here in Vegas we have them all over. Typically they have them all over, and there's different services held at different days of the week.
You can find one that works best for you.
Have I been to one of those?
You have.
I did. I went to one.
You went to one,
It was
y'all.
really good. It was really good. It was
We're
really
trying to
good.
bring him back to another one, but we don't pray about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of prayer.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yes.
think speaking of that, I think your story, I think God has through this podcast, whatever conversations you've had before and whatever conversations you will have, like I said earlier, to bring comfort to people, to bring understanding to people who I think are on the outside looking in. I think that your story will shine a light on areas that are just not necessarily overlooked, but thought of as common. And so the idea that people are out here hurting, and people need help. I think the biggest thing that I was feeling throughout this whole conversation is or the thing that's been like repeating in my head since you said it, was when I asked you earlier about the support, and so like the importance of just having somebody there to kind of ask you if you were okay. I think as believers and as human beings in general, we really have to, well, one, the Bible says that the power of life and death is in our tongues. So
Yep.
we really have
Mm,
to be cautious about what we're saying about other people, what we're saying about ourselves, what we're
yeah.
speaking over other people, but also we have to understand the power in what we're asking. So I want to call maybe a challenge or think about before you just ask somebody how they're doing, be intentional about asking, be prepared for their answer not
Amen.
always to be good, and to care
Hmm.
about the things that you're asking, because this could, that how are you doing could be the um life or death situation for them. That how are you doing could be the thing that saves somebody from drinking, from choosing other drugs, from hurting themselves, from deciding to take their own life because of your how you're doing wasn't just a regular how you're doing. It's I want to know where you're at. Tell me where you are. I'm here for you. And I think over the years, society has just made that such a greeting. Like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
I'm good. How are you? So casual. So my challenge is that everybody listening, whether you believe or don't believe, don't take these words seriously. This is a heavy loaded question. So if you're not prepared, pick another question like, hi, what's your favorite color? Because how are you doing is meant to create a space for people to tell you how they're doing, because we are relationship beings. God is shown through us, through other people. And so how amazing that we get to help them in this possible life or death or life moment by just asking them how are they doing and meaning it. So not being superficial, and just ask, don't ask if you don't want to know. If you're not prepared, if you don't have the space to help somebody in that, maybe ask somebody else who does, whatever that looks like. But we have to take back the power and the heaviness that that question has.
Yes.
Word. Amen. I agree. And I just want to give a shout out to Allie, being a great friend in that way and then that like always somebody that I can always tell, whether it be through phone call, FaceTime, or text message.
Mm.
And when you ask, how are you doing? Are you okay? Are you good? It's always honest. It's always truthful. Um, it's always real. So I appreciate you and my brothers, my brother Josh Rivera, and again my brother Damon Kelly, people that I've grown up with, hung out with, and kicked it with since high school, and so many other people that I've met, um, whether it be in passing or people that I text or call often. Um, all people that, in absence of all those people that kind of came and went a long time ago,
Mhm.
stood the test of time, and continue to be great friends and rocks and people um, that support in the truest sense of the word. So yeah, shout out to y'all.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate you. No,
and
I
Ayana, you're amazing.
Thank you.
You're amazing. You're like
Yay!
you're this show is awesome, and I want to I want to like put forth put out there for God to bless y'all and allow this, not even just my episode but all episodes moving forward, to reach far beyond your the ceiling that maybe you've created for yourselves within this platform. You got your voices do matter. The things you have to say do matter. The things you two bring to the table do matter, and it will reach far and exceed your wildest dreams in the name of God, in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
You know what I'm
Thank you.
saying?
Thank you.
That.
Yes, 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 yes,
Hallelujah.
yes, yes,
Look
yes.
at him preaching.
Hmm.
All righty. Well, thank you again, JJ. Thank you for coming on. Thank you
Hmm.
for spending time with us. Thank you for your vulnerability and transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate you.
Hmm.
Appreciated it. Although I've heard parts of the story, parts of the story I did not know, and I know that you definitely are not only resilient, but are becoming a great man of God, and all glory to God, but also good for you,
Yeah.
for taking the steps and for getting yourself to the place where you are now, and to continue to
Word.
work through that, and to let our listeners know, like, you can do it too. We can get stuck in a rock and a hard place, and we have choices to make,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's life or death, right? And so thank
Yeah,
you so much for
yeah,
sharing your story. Thank you so much for letting us in.
of
um
course.
if you're still listening, thank you for listening. We appreciate you. We appreciate everyone who tunes in, and who listens. So we'll be on the lookout for this drop, and know that we drop every other Monday, except for last time we dropped on Tuesday, but it's all right. It was
It's all
seven.
good. We moving and shaking over here.
Still
You know what I'm
moving
saying?
and
You gotta
shaking.
pivot a little bit. You gotta make
You're right.
adjustments.
Life
And
happens, y'all.
yep, and like my favorite actor, one of my favorite actors always says, I hope and pray I get the opportunity to work with him one day. John Bernthal
I thought it was Denzel.
said, of course, Denzel's a must.
All
So
right.
that's a must. But John Bernthal, he always says that pain is an adhesive. If you've experienced it, you can connect to people.
Mm.
So yeah, and I think that's what y'all do. You guys cultivated that, and you guys have created careers out of it, and now you have a podcast that'll do more of that more often. So good for y'all.
Yeah, and mic
Thank
drop.
you.
Okay, so again, thanks for everybody
Yeah.
for tagging along today. You can listen to us on Apple Podcast and Spotify, as well as watch us on YouTube if you'd like to see our faces. But yeah, follow us on Instagram. We are looking for topics and questions. We
Yes.
can only do this with your involvement. So again, thank you for listening, and we'll see y'all
Bye,
next time.
guys.